Welcome to a bonus episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where normally two best friends normally spin a wheel and it normally chooses the movie, but today is a very special day. Today we are talking about 1982's Friday the 13th Part 3, which was directed by Steve Miner, and the reason we're doing so is not only is it the 40th anniversary of this film, but it is also our co-host Joe's 40th birthday today. So, happy birthday, Joe, and this is going to be an awesome episode.
Thank you very much, Alec. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any other way I'd rather be spending my birthday than talking about Friday the 13th Part 3.
I mean, I can't, like, when you told me this, I mean, God, it must be a year and a half ago. You're like, I was born on the day of Friday the 13th. I was like, there's no way that a guy that loves these movies this much just happened to be born on the day that this movie came out. Like, the actual day, the day of the year, all of that. So, I love that little tidbit of trivia about you. So, how does this Friday the 13th then fit into your rankings? Like, how does this compare to the other ones for you?
You know what? We talked about Friday the 13th Part 2 a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And in that episode, I talked about how that wasn't one that I revisited a whole bunch growing up. I mean, I saw it plenty, but it wasn't one of my go-tos. But as I've gotten older, it's become one of my favorites. And I feel like it's kind of the opposite with this one. I feel like this one I revisited a ton growing up. It was probably one of my favorites and maybe has slipped a little bit in my rankings over the years.
You know, it's funny, dude. Me going back and watching it this time, I probably haven't seen it in bordering on 10 years. I actually liked it more than I thought I would.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, of course, the 3D stuff's a little cheesy, and, you know, it's a Friday the 13th movie, so it's not going to be, you know, a masterpiece. But at the end of the day, man, I love live events, but I hate buying tickets. The hidden fees suck, and coordinating with friends is a nightmare. I always end up fronting a bunch of money and then chasing down my friends to get reimbursed. And if they flake, I'm stuck with the whole bill. But then I discovered Fanimal. Fanimal has tickets to everything, and there are no fees. The price you see is the price you pay. Not only are the prices transparent, but they're almost always lower than anywhere else I look. And for any hot tickets, like Austin City Limits, or a Dodgers game, or a weekend concert, Fanimal is always the cheapest option. Nobody goes to live events alone, so why buy tickets alone? Fanimal's patented group purchase makes it easy. First, you set a minimum size for your group and choose the number of tickets you want to pay for yourself. Then you invite friends. When the minimum size is met, everyone gets charged and receives their tickets. If the minimum size isn't reached in time, nobody gets charged. You don't commit until your friends do. And Fanimal has amazing customer service. Check out their hundreds of 5-star reviews. The next time you need tickets, go to Fanimal.com or download the Fanimal app and sign up with code HORROR for $20 of credit towards your first purchase. Check out Fanimal and experience more. I liked this one. I liked it more than I really, maybe even more than 2. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And don't get me wrong, I think this movie's a lot of fun. I would probably, I mean, maybe we could get towards talking about where it would rank at the end.
Sure.
But I do feel like it's almost unfair to this movie not seeing it in 3D. Because I'm sure this movie was just so much fun with like a packed audience in 3D. I mean, the movie never stops like poking things out of the screen, you know? Like, I could only imagine the scene where Rick gets his head crushed and the eyeball flies at the audience. Like, the crowd must have gone wild. Like, I really wish I could have been in the audience at that time, but I was actually just being born, so that wasn't going to happen. But this movie has had some 3D home video releases.
Oh, yeah.
When it was released on DVD, it did come with the old-fashioned, red and blue 3D glasses and a very, primitive 3D transfer. And I bought it and watched it like that, and it did nothing. I mean, there was no effect. It was actually the same with Freddy's Dead on Laserdisc. I was very excited to revisit that movie in 3D at home because I did see that in theaters, and my memory was it was really awesome. But yeah, at home, you just can't recreate that. The latest Blu-ray release, from what I understand, does have like a proper 3D transfer. I do own it, but in order to watch it, you have to have a 3D TV and a 3D Blu-ray player, and I don't have that. So yeah, it's just 2D for me.
Well, I guess on the topic of the whole 3D thing about this, I do actually remember Eric had the DVD, I think, of Freddy's Dead, which came with the little glasses, and it same thing. It was like, this is a joke. This doesn't work. But I had heard that for Friday the 13th Part 3, it was so popular that opening weekend that they ran out of 3D glasses, which is just like, that's pretty cool. A little, I don't know, bit of trivia. But the thing that I've noticed about 3D is like it goes in like cycles of like 30 years kind of. You know, like in the 50s there's a lot of like those red and blue little glasses. Same with the 80s. And then I feel like, God, I want to say like 2011 or 2012, like right around there. There were so many weird 3D movies coming out. Star Wars, I remember, got re-released in 3D and all that stuff. And
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the 50s you had like House of Wax and Creature from the Black Lagoon.
oh,
And then in the 80s, it was Jaws 3, it was Amityville 3D.
right.
And then, yeah, I mean, I guess it was Avatar that really kicked off the most recent 3D explosion.
Mm. And Piranha 3D.
Piranha, My Bloody Valentine 3D.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And then a whole bunch of other movies that weren't even shot in 3D, but they just converted them to 3D because it was a trend. And like all trends, I feel like it just kind of plays itself out.
Yeah, I mean they were planning on releasing all of the Star Wars in 3D, and then after Phantom Menace they just gave up. So I was like, interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe in like 15 years, like I wonder if like they'll put VR headsets on or whatever, and you'll feel like you're actually in the movie or something like that. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, like we're in a strange time period right now where no one really knows what's going to happen with the theatrical experience, and that could lead to some kind of gimmick. I think the advent of TV is what caused the first 3D explosion to happen in the 50s,
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that does come along to get people back into the theater.
Yeah, dude, that's a really good point. Yeah, because like COVID really scared people and they took such a hit, so they're like, we need something big. We need something big. So, well, anyways, I guess jumping into this movie a little bit, first thing I noticed, because we just did part 2 recently, is same director, dude, Steve Miner.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's the only director that did multiple entries in the franchise, right?
Yeah, he's the only director that wasn't one and done.
Wow. So that's kind of cool, and it does feel a lot like part 2, with the exception of the set, which is like dramatically different, like very noticeably different. I'm assuming this one was filmed in California, not New Jersey or Connecticut, right?
Yes, and from what I understand, it was the 3D equipment that they didn't want to transfer across the country. Like, this was really expensive, state-of-the-art stuff, so they wanted to keep it in Southern California.
That makes sense. Yeah, it was called, what was it called? Like the Lumina or Lumin something. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah, but I remember I did see a behind-the-scenes photo of it falling over. And then, like, imagine this brand new technology. It's the most expensive part of the movie, and it just tips over on a crane and smashes.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about in other episodes how a lot of these Friday the 13th movies, they're cheap, they're done kind of quick and dirty and guerrilla style, but this movie was much more complicated. You can't shoot 3D in that fashion. Everything has to be like meticulously planned and lit correctly, and all the actors have to, hit their marks perfectly. So this was a very different shoot than the other Friday the 13th movies.
Well, I think the woman who played Debbie, I think I saw a behind-the-scenes interview with her where she was like, they weren't really so concerned with our acting, but more if we could swing a yo-yo in front of the camera.
Well, now that you bring it up, I complimented the Friday the 13th Part 2 cast. I thought they were a bit more polished than the original. I would say that we're taking a little bit of a step back with this cast.
Big time. I mean, the only person I can even remember is Shelley, just because, like, he has a little bit of character development, I guess.
Yeah, he's a memorable character. He's a little bit annoying. He kind of reminds me of Franklin in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, dude, he reminds me of Jonah Hill so much. It's like the way he looks in Superbad. I was like, dude, I feel like they just they were like, hey, we want you to look like that guy from Friday the 13th Part 3. But yeah, so Shelley, he was the only guy that really stood out to me. One thing that was kind of weird that they like didn't mention again was right in the beginning, there's like a couple and she's like, I don't want to smoke or something. I'm pregnant, right?
So strange, yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's just like a little touch to make this movie a little bit meaner, a little bit more mean spirited because, yeah, it really only comes up in that van scene and then it's never mentioned again. I mean, she's not showing or anything. They show her in a bikini later. So, yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah, that was super weird. So that's like the only thing from character development I really remember. However, I totally forgot about this. That flashback scene that Chris, the final girl, gives, and she's talking about like how Jason ambiguously may have raped her. We don't know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you make of that. It is just kind of left up to your imagination. Yeah, she had this encounter with Jason 2 years ago. So I hate to do this, but if we're talking the timeline, that happened right in between parts 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And she had this encounter with Jason, and then he's dragging her through the woods, and she doesn't remember anything that happened after that. It's just odd. It just leaves a lot up to the imagination, I guess.
Well, it's just super weird, dude. So, like, the whole story is basically her and her boyfriend stayed out too late. So then her mom, or I'm sorry, yeah, so she gets home and she gets in a fight with her parents. Her mom slaps her and she runs outside, which like, she says she's going back to Crystal Lake because she needs to deal with this. But they make it seem like she, like, just walked out of her house and was randomly there and Jason's right there waiting for her. So it's kind of like, what? Do you live at Crystal Lake?
Yeah, and it just doesn't seem like Jason's MO to leave her alive,
Right.
So it's strange.
Yeah, you think he'd kidnap her or do horrible things to her, but the thing is, nothing from any of the other movies leads us to believe that he's like a Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left kind of like rapist. He's just a crazy murderer, it seems like.
Right. And I think at this point, Jason's MO hadn't really even been established yet.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think this movie had 3 writers, and I don't think any of them actually had even seen the other movies.
Oh, God.
So,
oh, my God.
So if there's inconsistencies, that might be it.
Well, the only thing that gives me a little bit of like, they might be able to do like a prequel to like 2 or something like that, like Friday the 13th 1.5 or something like that, where it just kind of like talks about this story and it delves into a little bit about more what Jason was doing in between 1 and 2, and I don't know, at least it would connect to the series a little bit by having this Chris character. I mean, you'd have to recast her obviously, but
yeah, I mean, this whole time period is really interesting, and you could debate it and try and figure it out yourself. But we talked about it during our Friday 2 episode. Is Jason this supernatural force that just rose from the lake at some point, or has he been living in the woods like a hermit this whole time?
Yeah, I think I go with the latter in the beginning, at least until like Tommy Jarvis cuts his head in half. But the thing is, man, like everybody says, and even this movie backs it up, that this takes place the day after part 2, so it's technically Saturday the 14th, I guess. But he just got a machete like down to his heart, basically, like the night before, right?
Yeah, I mean, it like cut through his shoulder, probably through his collarbone. Like, he should probably have no use of one of his arms. I think it was maybe his left arm, but that isn't even addressed in this movie. So I mean, maybe you can just chalk it up to he is just this supernatural force of nature. I mean, he does survive an incredible amount of punishment later in this movie too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. I think he's got to have some sort of super strength. Yeah, because to that point, like, he gets that, he gets stabbed in the leg, he gets it in the head at the end. So it's just like, all right, yeah, this guy's not, like, yeah, it's not normal. But yeah, so that was the only thing. The pregnancy thing was really weird. The fact that they, for some reason, they make it the next day, because that news report clearly says, like, this is all happening, which, again, you do see the police in the beginning a little bit, but why aren't they going up to the camp and making sure everything is shut down, everybody's evacuated or safe? Like, clearly there's a murderer on the run.
Yeah, all good points. I won't push back on any of that. I could only imagine that decision was made So it kind of gives an excuse as to why they haven't heard about it yet.
Okay.
It happened so recently. Word hasn't traveled to them yet. If it was like a year later, like it is in real time, wouldn't people just be staying away from this area, I don't know. I guess it doesn't affect anyone in the all the other sequels that came after this. But I was thinking that choice was made just to say, well, the events of part 2 were just a few hours ago. These kids have no idea what just happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Halloween 2, I guess. But the thing is, like, the town's aware of it. Like, the cops are all aware of it. They're trying to protect people. Like, this one, it just seemed like the cops, like, were putting the lead from the first, or Ginny, or whatever her name is, from the second one into the car. And then that was it. They don't really go to the lake. They don't go check. What was this place called? Higgins Hollow or something?
Higgins Haven, I think?
Yeah. So you think they'd go up there and be like, hey, we gotta, like, look for this murderer. Like,
Right.
He's still alive.
Yeah.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bard's Clothing. The days of "Hi, my name is" are over. We live in a virtual world, and our images are being shared on social media and professional pages every day. With over 1,000 fabrics to choose from, Bard's Clothing is here to tell your story through clothing. Make sure the image you want people to have of you is the one you're sending, because by the time you get face-to-face, their minds might already be made up. Quality clothing all made here in America. Head on over to www.bardsclothing.com or follow them on Instagram @bardsclothing.
Speaking of Ginny, Amy Steele, the actress from part 2, Steve Miner actually wanted to get her back and do something pretty different. It sounded a little like Halloween 2, where she's in the hospital. I think she had been committed. I think it would have taken place like sometime after part 2. She was in an institution and Jason comes for her there. That would have been kind of an interesting change of pace. But from what I understand, for one thing, Amy Steele didn't want to come back. And also the producers really wanted to follow that formula. They really wanted to get back to that original Friday the 13th because that was the really huge hit. Part 2 did well, but they wanted to kind of follow part 1's model as much as they can.
Yeah, I did read that too, and it would have... I would have just been like John Carpenter, sitting there being like, you guys copied basically my idea. Now you're basically copying my sequel idea too by having it take place in like an asylum. It's like, come on. But I think the thing is like, my biggest problem with the Friday the 13th series is there's not a protagonist for us to root for. Tommy Jarvis is the closest we ever get. But at least with Nightmare on Elm Street, we get the Dream Warriors and we get Nancy and obviously Laurie and all this stuff. But that's the thing about this movie is like you end up rooting for Jason because there's nobody else.
Yes, and I really think that this is the first time I feel like the movie is asking you to root for Jason because we get this couple in the beginning of the movie, the couple at the store. They're his first victims. And, this woman is just so unpleasant. And this guy is just like repulsive. We get a shot of him taking a shit.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be on a diet. He's eating everything in sight. Like he's just kind of a schlub. And,
Wait. You don't hide whiskey behind the toilet, Joe? You don't hide a bottle?
And the food he's eating, it's on the shelves of the store he's working at. So,
yeah.
I mean, they're really doing everything they can to make these people like as unlikable as possible. Yeah. And I feel like that was never the case in part 1 or part 2. But, when we get to part 5, that's like every character in that movie. Like everybody is a rube. Everybody is like white trash. So this is interesting. It's like the beginning of, the filmmakers making a movie where, you're really rooting for Jason. He's become the hero.
Yeah, because, in part 2 when he kills... Is it Mark in the wheelchair?
Yes.
You're like, dude, like, what the hell? What did that guy do? And then, in this one, you're like, oh, they're stoners. Like, they're bad guys. And then there's the biker gangs. And then, you're right. The biker gang scene, though, dude, I'm sitting there, and we can go back to the scene, but I just want to talk about the aftermath a little bit when Shelley and I can't remember who's with him, Debbie maybe, and they get back to the camp and they go up to Rick or whatever and they're like, hey man, it's like, what happened to my car? And it's like, it wasn't really our fault, but like, you got it. I would be like, no, you're fucking paying for my car. Like, are you serious right now? Like, they don't even tell him what happened.
Yeah, it's so strange. I was thinking the same thing, and I don't even really understand what the relationships are between these people.
Yeah.
Like, I know Chris and Rick used to be an item, but these are all just like Chris's friends, right? They don't even know Rick, and they come back to the cabin and his car's trashed, and they're like, "Oh yeah, whatever." It's
Dude.
it's just really strange. I mean, the relationships, the acting, some of these line readings are just real doozies. I mean, yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this one YouTube video where it really highlights how bad it is, but the stoner girl dude, where she's just like, "Oh my God, they're dead! Oh my God!" and she's like running around the stairs and stuff like that, and I was like, "This is so. Who thought this was good? Like, who was sitting there? Like Steve Miner. I know he's probably like just whatever, crank it out, crank it out, but like, you gotta try a little, a little."
Yeah, I know. And I complimented, part two. I really thought that was a big step forward for the series. But all I could think of is that he had his hands full with all the 3D technology.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Back to the bikers gang a little bit. So it was a whole crazy scene, but I think my favorite part of the entire thing is that Ali guy survives just to come back for 2 seconds at the end to just get murdered.
Yeah, just long enough to distract Jason briefly
Yeah.
so Chris could pick up the axe and bury it in his head.
Oh.
I wish, he came back earlier and maybe teamed up with Chris for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, then he gets killed and Chris is on her own, and it would have been a cool kind of character arc.
Seriously.
For Ali, but yeah, like no sooner does he show up than Jason just chops off his arm and then, butchers him with a machete.
And this is a joke, obviously, but it makes me feel like Jason's a little racist because I've never seen him, like, usually it's just one stab and you're done. Like, he, like, physically beat the shit out of Ali, let him live, then cuts his arm off, then stabs him, like, 15 times with a machete. You're like, what did this guy do to you? What did he do to you, Jason?
It could be. I don't know. I think we could find other examples of equal opportunity brutality.
I know. I'm totally joking. The one thing I did like about the gang, though, which just helped the story along, is they drain the gas out of their van, which then prevents Chris from escaping at the end. I was like, okay, I like that.
Yeah, that was a nice little setup. They set up the bridge too, like when they're driving into the campgrounds. The bridge under the tires of the van is it looks like it's going to give away in the beginning, and then towards the end, the van does break through the bridge. There's a few little things set up that come back to pay off.
Yeah, very like Evil Dead-esque. I like that with the van on the rickety bridge.
Did you notice the Bruce Springsteen? What is it?
What was it? The Boss sticker?
Yeah, the bumper sticker. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess because they're not shooting in Jersey, they thought how could we sell this as New Jersey? We'll just put a Bruce Springsteen bumper sticker on the van. That should do it.
Well, I did notice when they interacted with the gang, Shelley and them at the convenience store, there is a sign. I think it says Green Hill, New Jersey. So they tried a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you could kind of tell the landscape looks different. I mean, it's not even really a lake. It looks like a swamp.
It's so obvious. Like, it was a man-made. I guess they built everything from scratch. They built the houses, the cabins, and the lake. And apparently one day, the first day they did it or whatever, they didn't set it properly, so all of the water just went into the soil. So it must have made it just muddy and mushy as hell, dude. But yeah, it just doesn't look like a lake. It looks like a little lagoon. And especially at the end when Chris is trying to get away, you're just like, where's she gonna go? It's just like a tiny little like mossy pit.
And not to fast forward too much, but we get that jump scare where Mrs. Voorhees jumps out of this swamp, and I couldn't help but just feel terrible for the actress who had to do that.
It must have sucked so much, and it must have sucked for the actress playing Chris because, like, I'm assuming they had to do it at least like 4 or 5 times, and she'd have to get out and get her hair dried and done again, and then just have to get pulled into this the water looks disgusting. So
and from what I understand, there was a lot of wildlife around, a lot of snakes. I don't know. I don't know if I could have done that.
No, I always think about that, like the only thing I think in film that I could never do is have like a spider on my face, like in Home Alone. Like when he puts a tarantula on his face, it's like, listen, we'll give you $50,000. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Yeah, that's my only thing. Snakes, maybe, but because those snakes looked real coming out of her face.
Oh, it was like, yeah, like worms or something.
Oh, maybe they were worms. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They were moving though, and I was like, I don't think
Right.
those are fake. But there is a fake snake in the beginning with the 3D that I was like, guys, you can see the fucking wire on it. Like, come on. Yeah, some of the 3D gimmicks were a little rough. I mean, the eyeball one, really cool idea, but it's just like, yeah, it's like on a string. It's like, ring. It comes
Oh
out,
yeah,
but-
I mean it's silly as hell,
Yeah.
but I could imagine like if you were sitting in a packed audience opening night and that eyeball shoots out at you. I mean, I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
it got a good reaction.
Well, I gotta say, man, I think one of the best kills I've ever seen, and one of the most fucked up kills, is that handstand guy.
Yes, probably the best in the movie.
Whew, I don't know if you would die immediately, dude. Like,
Yeah, no, I mean the mind reels thinking about it.
oh my god. I mean, even James Bond villains, they like put your head against like the laser as it's like moving on the conveyor belt. But this is like, I'm gonna cut his dick and balls and go like into his stomach, and luckily he dies. But you'd think he'd be like, oh my god, and like crawling around on the floor, and then who knows what Jason would do. But and then for him to like put him on the rafter at the end, and it's like dripping onto the Fangoria magazine and stuff, and you're just like, when did he have the time to do this?
Yeah, there's some pretty good gags. And, you know, when we talk about the kills and the gore in these movies, I always bring up the MPAA and the trims and the edits they had to make. I never heard much about this one being very chopped up. I don't know one way or the other, but regardless, they got away with some good gags in this one.
Oof, yeah. I mean, seriously, it's like they like fillet that guy out after they cut, his dick and balls. But and then also the first kill we ever get with Jason in full mask and costume or whatever when he shoots the oh my god, the fish gun or whatever, the fish hook gun.
The spear gun.
There you go, the spear gun. It goes right through that girl's eye. I mean, that's it. That's Jason. He's here.
I mean, I was thinking about how there was a time where that retro hockey mask was just a hockey mask.
Right.
You know, it's so crazy to think about because it's so iconic now. But, you know, when he walks out onto the pier all nonchalant wearing that mask, like, was the audience thinking, yes, you know, that's the look, like, that's perfect? Or were they like, yeah, I like the bag better in part two? I don't know. It's so funny to think, you know, it could have been anything. And they went with this, and it's just become such a staple.
In like 1975, if somebody was going to say, in 10 years, guys, the biggest film franchise, or biggest horror franchise is going to be a guy in a hockey mask, you'd be like, what? It's so stupid. But yeah, it's so iconic.
And I feel like if you showed someone that mask, because people haven't worn hockey masks like that in decades, I feel like if you showed anyone that mask, the first thing they would say is, oh, that's a serial killer mask. Or, you know, if they didn't know horror movies, they would associate it with Halloween or just horror movies in general. And I think that's just so crazy, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a piece of sports equipment, but it has taken on this whole new life.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, I think probably having the axe mark in the next one and then all the other ones probably too helped. You know, they're just like, oh, it's like, that's the only thing that's consistent, really. His outfit changes, his face changes, but the mask is always the same.
Yeah, the actor changes, his whole
Right.
body, his body shape changes, but yeah, the mask stays consistent.
I gotta say, I think the scariest part of the movie for me is when Chris is on the boat and she looks up and you just see Jason without his mask on, though, like coming out the window and then just breaking through the door. Like, that is terrifying.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that moment has always kind of freaked me out. I don't know why. It's just because it's like there's something very like subtle and spooky about it. Like she wakes up in the raft, she looks back at the cabin and just sees his face in one of the windows. It's so good.
And he looks so, like, excited. He's like, oh, I can't wait to get you. It's like a dog that's just, like, drooling. And it's like the thought must be going through your head, like, I can't kill this guy. Like, there's nothing I can do. I just fucking hit him in the head with a machete or an axe or whatever, and he's still not dead.
I'll say I feel like this whole climax kind of starting when Rick gets killed, you know, through the house, through the barn, and now onto the lake. I feel like this is probably the strongest final 10, 15 minutes of the series up until now.
Dude, I forgot that was a dream, that Jason coming out was a dream. And I was like, wait, how does he get stopped? I genuinely forgot. And you're right. I was so, like, pumped up. I was like, damn, this one really isn't letting go. Like, here, he's coming right. You know, mask is gone. He doesn't give a shit. But Mrs. Voorhees, her head, dude. Her head. How is her head? I mean, I know it's a dream, but, like, come on. Her head's gone. Yeah. Like, we see it gone an hour earlier, and it's like, no. It's back on her body now.
Yeah, and if it's a dream, I mean, in this movie, she hasn't heard about Mrs. Voorhees, so
yeah.
I mean, maybe Mrs. Voorhees is this kind of town legend that would make sense. 5 years previous, I'm sure it was in the news and on newspapers, so she might. I'll give the movie the benefit of the doubt. She might know who Miss Voorhees is and is just having a dream about her in this moment.
Yeah, that's true.
I still feel like the original Friday the 13th is undefeated when it comes to the final jump scare. I still feel like Jason in that last moment with the kind of peaceful music and Alice in the canoe, and you think everything's fine and the credits are probably about to roll, and then boom, Jason comes out. That moment still gets me. This one, not too bad.
The only reason that this one got me, actually, was you're expecting it, and they psych you out so many times where, like, the log hits the boat, and then, dude, genuinely, the duck actually scared me. I was like, wait, that's... Because I thought it was just the mom, so I was, like, just waiting for that, and then the duck, the thing, and then Jason coming out. I forgot about all that, so... it actually did scare me, but 100% to your point, dude. Like, the first time, it's as classic as it can get.
There are a couple of alternate endings that were apparently filmed.
Really?
There's one that I had heard about and I thought I had seen, but, I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. And I guess I had just seen some production stills. Apparently, an ending that they all really wanted to go with was kind of a downer. It was going to have Jason just chopping Chris's head off and everybody dies. But again, the producers were a little bit squeamish about breaking formula too much, and they went with something more traditional.
They should have gone with that. I was thinking that too. I was just like, this is just bullshit. Like, she just gets away. Same. I mean, this time she's crazy. This time though, and she's babbling to herself. But it's the same thing.
Yeah, it almost undercuts her victory a little bit.
Yeah.
It almost seems like she's just kind of totally lost it and is probably going to spend the rest of her life in an asylum or something.
Yeah.
But they're really going for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think, because that's kind of how Marilyn Burns is in the final moments of that movie, just kind of laughing and totally hysterical.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't actually think about that. The one thing is, though, dude, goddamn these cops in Crystal Lake. So they just leave his body in the barn. It's like, okay, so this is the dude that just massacred the entire camp the night before, killed all these people that were also on the camp, but just whatever, they're here too. And then they're not even going to take his body. So, granted, he doesn't move, and it just goes to the lake, and you're like, blah, blah, blah. But, dude.
I mean, Crystal Lake has a long history of just completely incompetent police work. I mean, think about Friday Part 6 that we talked about. Jason's, chained probably a foot below the surface.
Oh, yeah.
And he's still there years later in Part 7. I mean, really terrible police work.
But to that point, when they leave his body and he doesn't move and there's nothing indicating he's still alive, I think that this was supposed to be the last one, right? But it did so well financially. They were just like, our hands are tied, guys. We have to make more money.
Yeah, I think so. And this one did do really well. I think it was the biggest sequel until Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah, I heard that too. And I mean, I'm assuming the 3D gimmick helped, but like at this point, Jason had been running shit for 3 straight years, and Halloween took such a gap between its sequels, and Nightmare on Elm Street hadn't come out yet, and there really weren't other slasher movies that were having like such consistency with their sequels. So this was, I would have loved to have been alive back then, like to be able to go to these events and, have the lore spread, the popularity spread, all that.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Joe, do you have any last minute thoughts for your birthday or anything about this movie?
Well, let's see. This is a really fun movie. I mean, I would probably rank it somewhere in the high end of the middle,
Yeah.
My favorites are probably 6, 4. Like I said, 2 has really grown on me. Freddy vs. Jason is up there somewhere. And then probably this one. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm so glad we could celebrate it on its anniversary. And yeah, don't forget, I also saw a bunch of these movies came out on my birthday. Jason Goes to Hell and Freddy vs. Jason. So
okay.
We've covered Freddy vs. Jason.
Yes, we have.
2023 will be the 30-year anniversary of Jason Goes to Hell. Maybe we'll wait till next year for that.
Well, I don't know if you've been reading a little bit on Twitter, but apparently there's some real talk about another Friday the 13th coming out in the near future. Have you heard about anything about this?
I've heard some rumblings. Yeah.
It does come and go. But...
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll wait and see. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be amazing. But yeah, dude, we're getting so close. I mean, again, with this series, we've done it so out of order, but the only ones we have left are 4, 5, 8, and 9. And then I can put them all together in like a 5-hour supercut sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'd be really interested to like hear them so disjointed. I mean, you've done most of them with us.
I think I have to insist on being present for the Part 5 New Beginning podcast, because that was probably the one that me and my friends watched the most. And it is just such a wild entry. I mean, I won't even go into it here, but I mean, it's that movie is just really something.
Oh, Joe, you're finishing the franchise. Like you're doing every single one. Yeah. Like, oh, there's just one guy I talked to once in college. No. This is you. But anyways, yeah, I guess that's about it from me on these movies. I mean, this one, I think I like Freddy vs. Jason a little bit more than this. I'd say this is like maybe just a smidge below Jason X for me, or right on par. I don't know. I liked how different that one was.
I forgot that you guys have a soft spot for Jason X. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because I was a kid when it came out, so I remember liking it so much. But I know it's not good.
No, fair enough. No judgments.
Yeah, exactly. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening today to our bonus episode on Friday the 13th Part 3 and to help us celebrate Joe's 40th birthday. If you haven't had a chance yet, we released our episode on Prey yesterday, so you can check that out. And then on Monday, we have our episode on... I'm editing it right now. What do we do, Joe? Just...
Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
That's it. Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Joe, happy birthday, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, sir.